This video contains full spoilers for the Division 2's Battle for Brooklyn DLC campaign and narrative elements.
Clear for liftoff. Excellent.
Oh!
We should reach the target in 15
What
minutes.
Hey everyone, RogueGold here, welcome back to the Division 2. And today, now that people have hopefully had a chance to play through it, I want to discuss the story and specifically the ending reveals for the Battle for Brooklyn DLC campaign. A lot happened very quickly there at the end, so let's break it down and discuss what it means for the future of the Division 2 story. We'll get right to it, but if you enjoy this video and you want to see more like it on the future for the game, then I hope you will consider clicking that subscribe button if you've not already. Furthermore, I have to give a big thank you to our channel members for your continued support. It allows me to do what I do here on the channel, which is so much of a joy, so thank you. But without further ado, let's get to it. Alright, so where to begin for Battle for Brooklyn? Looking at the DLC campaign and storyline overall, things really began picking up, revelation-wise in the latter half of it. And I think what we saw is why the devs were trying to toe the line as much as they could between saying that this DLC is a story for everybody, but that it also has connections back to the main storyline and the season stuff. I'd say by the end of this, it does end up being a pretty pivotal moment and just, context point in the continuing story. But let's get into it. So I would say things really take a turn when we get to the Art Museum main mission. This is where we learn that Sarah Moretti, who is Theo's ally and friend, was indeed a rat. Pun absolutely intended there. But yeah, she was working for Danvers, and it's then further revealed at the final Army Terminal mission that Danvers is actually Black Tusk, and that they hired the cleaners to enact this invasion on Brooklyn. They supplied them with the Purple Flame, which does contextualize some of the comms that we got at the Paradise Lost incursion, where we knew that Natalia Sokolova and Wright, who was one of the bosses that we fought there, were kind of involved in all of this. So that all now makes a bit more sense. And one thing that I wanted to point out is that as we're running through the mission, one of the most significant lines that is mentioned is by Theo, saying that, Black Tusk is the ones who produce the Purple Flame and they're distributing it to the cleaners. But he says that apparently the majority of this Purple Flame production and all of the experimentative technology that they made with it has been shipped out of state.
Not only are the Black Tusk developing new equipment here with the Purple Flame, but they're shipping most of it out of state.
That left a big question mark for me. Are they trying to set up something with the Division 3? Are they trying to tease future Division 2 content? Is this more of like a transmedia tie-in thing? Kind of like what we saw with the Hunted novel. I won't give any more spoilers than that. I'm not sure, but I definitely thought that was a quite interesting comment for them to make. But we get towards the end of the mission, and this is when it is revealed that they have built and powered a Zeppelin that is intent on bombing the bridge settlement. So yeah, that was pretty wild. The Zeppelin itself didn't have a ton of narrative significance other than it being an immense show of power for the Black Tusk. But yeah, it was damn cool to see. But essentially, once we take it down and we see some of the final cutscenes, we learn that everything that went on in Brooklyn was largely for the Black Tusk to try and get their hands on Amherst's virus printer, which is something that Theo has stowed away at the bridge. I really had no idea that this thing was still in play after Warlords, where Keener had Chernenko use it to create the Eclipse virus. That is something that they mention in this cutscene, but yeah, it is now here at the bridge. Theo and Dr. Candle claim that it is in safe hands, that they are currently using it for vaccine production, but on the flip side, you have Hoskins who argues that this is a huge risk and that it puts a target on their backs, and it literally did. They had a Zeppelin flying their way trying to take them out. The final bit of found footage that you unlock shows Danvers and Sarah Moretti discussing this specifically, saying that Nat will be disappointed that Sarah was unable to extract it out from the bridge. And so another big curiosity that I have right now is, what does Nat want with it? They remind us that she has the bioreactor that we originally got from the Pentagon that was stolen from us at the White House at the attack that happened at the end of Season 11. So it's what is her plan? Does she want to create her own super virus like the Eclipse? Does she want to hold power over the green poison vaccine production to make the civilian population flock to her? I'm not too sure at this point. We've gotten a rough idea over the seasons here that hers and Cal's ultimate goal is to get nuclear access, and they want to eliminate their competition, potentially by using the nukes, but then also going into an underground city that they're building to wait out the fallout. And so again, I'm how does virus stuff play into that? Is creating a new super virus like a backup plan if that were to not work out? I have no idea. But that is more or less Battle for Brooklyn's biggest reveals in its finale. Things went out with a bang, literally. Truly, I have to give a shout out and hats off to people like Daniel and Horia, and I'm sure many more at the Bucharest team for pulling this off and having a Zeppelin as our final boss. I think my only critique or feedback is that I wish we were a bit more directly involved in the fight against it. You know, maybe when it's shooting those drones out, there are limited time weak points that pop up that we could have destroyed, things like that, because it showed up and it was awesome. But then it just starts to fly away and you have to hit a few laptops to activate some rockets. It was a little anticlimactic, but still, overall, having a Zeppelin here, that was an amazing set piece. Before I close out while we're here, I figured we would briefly discuss the DLC's larger narrative as well, and I'm sure we'll talk about this more in the future too. I really liked the linear presentation of this story. If you weren't aware, they tried a bit of a different approach compared to stuff like the Division 2's original campaign or Warlords of New York, in that you had to do each mission in the order they told you to in this DLC. I'm curious how people felt about that overall compared to those previous structures where we had the freedom to go and do whichever mission we wanted in any order. But for me, my favorite example of why this felt good was when we were doing the first H5 refinery mission. We kind of failed that mission at the end, like it still blows up, and then we get the comms from Hoskins saying that there's an attack happening at the bridge, we need to go back and stop it. Normally in a Division experience you would hear that and then some other stuff would happen and it maybe wouldn't quite happen immediately afterwards, but it did. You leave the mission, you're loaded into a new like story mission, and there's this all-out attack happening on the bridge that we have to try and stop. So that was really fun. I think it adds stakes, it adds timing. This also lent into the Black Tusk reveal with them, again, knowing which missions we would do. They could leave a little clues and then ultimately reveal it at the army terminal. I think my only main complaint with this DLC format specifically is that unfortunately it was just a bit too short for me to really get to know the characters and their motivations. To be clear, the short length wasn't a surprise. The devs were very upfront about that from the beginning, saying that this would be smaller than Warlords of New York. But for example, I think the one that hit me the largest was the reveal that Sarah Moretti was the Rat Queen. When that happened, I was like, oh, was she really that important of a character? Did she mean that much to Theo? The answer was yes, and we had stuff like the found footage and the Echo to try and establish that. But again, with how quickly this DLC went by, it's all just coming at you so fast that, at least for me, it's easy to misplace names and roles. And especially with so much of this DLC's establishing lore coming from stuff like Descent comms and other locations, that reveal specifically, and maybe other ones too, might have just hit a bit harder had we had more time to familiarize ourselves with these characters, with the relationships that they have with each other. Another example, it was awesome to meet Melanie Hoskins after she was first introduced in an audio drama years ago. If you haven't listened to Hearts on Fire, highly recommend. But by the end of the DLC, for me at least, I'm still kind of trying to figure out who she is as an agent. I mean, we know her backstory, we know her role here, but again, it just all went by so fast. Overall though, for what this team pulled off with the resources that they have, the most uninformed take I've seen online is people saying this is what they came up with after 5 years of working on it. They have not been working on this since Warlords release. Since then, we lost a dev team, got a new one. They had to relearn everything about the game. To the best of my knowledge, it's been like 2, maybe a bit over 2 years since they really hit the ground running on this DLC. So, given their small size, given what we got with Brooklyn, I had a lot of fun. I'm very excited to see what they choose to do next now that the resources are freed up from making this content, because Battle for Brooklyn was a lot of fun. My friends, that is my breakdown of this latest DLC for The Division 2, specifically its finale and the story and narrative reveals. I'm quite interested to see where we go from here narrative-wise. I've yet to dive into any of the Crossroads season stuff that is live in the game. I need to get on that. But yeah, I now turn it all over to you. What were your reactions to playing through Battle for Brooklyn, seeing the different reveals? What are your thoughts about stuff like the revelation of Theo still having access to Amherst's virus printer? What'd you think about the Zeppelin, of course? Any thoughts you have, I'd love to hear them down below. That's going to do it for me on this one, though. Thank you all so much for watching. I'll catch you back soon. Until then, RogueGold.